Hey, so I'm just kind of hanging out outside today. Um, I, I'm trying not to talk about local politics, but I've been very involved in local politics for a little over a decade now, and I was involved before, but not in the capacity that I have been over the last decade. So, anyways, it's just gotten really nasty, and yeah, this is not really what this is about, but um, anyways, I had being involved in local politics. I'm running a group, just being an admin of a local political group. um, I'm not quite as involved as I used to be. I used to be extremely involved. I helped launch a campaign to fight a gas plant. We lost by one vote, so it was very disappointing. But so we have a gas plant now. But then the city, we all helped to get the city to go 100% renewable, which they did do. But it doesn't matter if you have a gas plant and you're buying physical credit. If you're buying physical energy on the market, which I'm in Texas, so it's through ERCOT. For renewable energy, but you are producing using a gas plant, even if your city's not using it, I just don't feel like that makes us 100% renewable. We're just not. Anyways, it is what it is. But so it's been a disappointment. It's been a disappointment. Like, I'm not going to even put, I'm not going to go into that. It just is. It is a disappointment. Anyhow, so then our renewable energy portfolio, I have actually since learned, and this is frustrating also, I have since learned that we buy, the credits, and it's, so it's no longer even, I don't know, it is physical energy. Like, we are buying from, wind farms and, solar farms and whatnot, but wind farms down by the coast and solar farms in West Texas. And I don't know if we still use those same ones, but when I, talked to the person over our municipal electric, it was that's where we were purchasing from, and other places. But we sell natural gas. We use our gas plant. We don't sell natural gas. We use our gas plant, and we sell the energy from the natural gas plant to different cities across the state. And we have our own grid in Texas. So we are not connected to other grids unless you're, I believe, kind of like over by Big Bend area. I think that they actually, they can share energy with other states. But so anyway, we had our big ice storm, and I don't remember what year it was. I think it was like 2021 or something. Uri, winter storm Uri, and it was below zero that winter, and our grid failed, the entire grid, like across the state of Texas, and it was miserable. I camp, but I'm not like a proficient camper. Like, I'm not like, trekking up to the north and camping in ice and stuff like that. So, but I do like to camp on occasion, and we have gone camping, like in Yellowstone, although we use a pop-up camper because, we had our daughter, but other places we've tent camped. And anyway, so I have a tent and I have sleeping bags and stuff like that. So I had those inside my house during Winter Storm Uri, just because you put the tent over the bed, and it maintains some of the heat. And you have like these, if you're in sleeping bags, you can at least stay a little warm. But I think our city actually did a pretty good job dealing with it, because there were some cities that, or areas that were just completely, they completely didn't have any electricity at all for days on end. And you saw these images where, their pipes are bursting and they have icicles hanging from their fans and they're burning their furniture to try and stay warm to survive. It was not like that in my city, luckily. I think DME, which is Denton Municipal Electric, I feel like they did a pretty good job with the situation. And Tony Puente, he's the general manager, he was up day and night just trying to make sure that he was doing what he needed to do for residents in our city. And I feel like he did a stellar job. That man, he really does care. And I know people, people in the environmental movement, people that are friends of mine, I know that sometimes we all have like a different opinion because Tony is not really in favor of solar. So I kind of have to balance these things too, because I've had conversations with him about that too. But, give credit where credit is due. I mean, he really came through for the residents of Denton during that ice storm. And I think if we had something similar, he would work day and night coming through for us again. And all of, the employees at DME and everything, they really did. They came through for us. And so I'm always forever grateful to them for that, because it was absolutely nightmarish. I think the inside of my house was, it stayed above freezing, but barely. And that's because we would occasionally get energy probably every hour or two. It would kick on for like 10-15 minutes and then it would be off. So, and sometimes it would kick on for an hour if we were lucky, those were the good hours. Like, it was nice. But yeah, you're just trying to cook and you're trying to take a shower and you're trying to do whatever you need to do, charge, your phone or your iPad or whatever, in the time that you did have electricity. And because it was just so cold outside, because it was below zero, that the second your heat wasn't on, it was just drastically getting colder in your home. So anyways, that went on for a few days. I actually had PTSD for a while after that. I think all of us did. But I would hear the heat kick on in the night, and I think I woke up and my daughter and I were co-sleeping just because, we had the tent and everything in my bedroom. But so she co-slept with me for a few days after that. And she was young. And so anyways, but I think I woke up and I was like, charge your phone in the middle of the night. And she was like, what? And I was like, oh wait, I'm dreaming. Never mind. Because you hear the heat come on and then you realize electricity was on. So in my haze of sleep, I was telling her to charge her phone. But anyways, yeah, that whole experience was crazy. But anyways, our gas plant did not work during that ice storm. Because whoever provides our natural gas, they were not winterized and could not provide it. And so the pipes froze or something, I don't know. Anyways, so our city lost a ton of money during that storm because Texas, ERCOT, and all of these suppliers and just jacked up the prices ridiculously. I don't even know how much, $1,000 per, whatever. It ridiculous. Where it would normally be pennies per unit, it was $1,000 per unit. So just an enormous amount of debt, and our city paid it instead of suing and waiting. So anyhow, so we have issues. We were already having issues because the gas plant was putting us into the red to pay for the gas plant, which was nearly $1 billion with infrastructure updates, which is something that a city the size of Denton really can't afford. So we were already going to have to raise electricity rates because of the gas plant. But then gas prices went up, and so that actually helped DME's situation, because they were able to sell the gas at a higher price, and it brought us back into the black, so we weren't going to have to raise rates. But then Uri happened, and then we absolutely ultimately had to, because Moody's, like Standard & Poor's and all that, they lowered our ratings. The ratings agencies lowered us because they were not certain we could pay our debts. So they did go ahead and, in fact, raise electricity rates for the city of Denton for our municipal electric. And that is when I was talking about how I, insulated my home, and I lowered the cost of my electricity bill. And then once they raised rates again, it shot over that. So they raised rates twice, like 20%, and then I don't remember. Anyways, they're still planning to raise rates again. But here's the kicker, and this is where it's problematic, because I think people really like having a renewable energy plan. I know it makes me feel a little bit better knowing that my own usage goes towards solar and wind energy when I kick on my electricity right now. However, I have learned that we buy these PPAs on the market, and we are not selling them back when we don't use them. So I don't know how much money we're losing on that, but it's significant. It is a significant amount of money, to the point to where we might be able to lower our electricity rates very, very significantly if we did not have a renewable plan. And it's very upsetting to me, because that feels like mismanagement on the part of our council, because our council is the one who determines ultimately what we are going to do with these plans, like what we are going to use, how we are going to manage it. And Tony does too, don't get me wrong, DME. But if the council tells him that he needs to do this, he's going to do it, because it's the will of the citizens. And anyhow, so I think it's like millions of dollars that extra that our renewable plan is costing us, because we're not selling back into the market what we don't use. And it's ridiculous and pointless, because the residents of Denton are paying these really high cost electricity bills, as is everyone else in Texas. I'm not saying that our bills are higher than other people's, but I'm saying that we shouldn't have to pay that much if we would just either manage the PPAs better, or do something entirely different, like, I don't know. Anyways, like, we could have one person I know wants us to have a solar farm, and I think that's a really good idea, actually, but it's complicated with the state. Like, if you're a producer of energy and you're in Texas, it is really difficult, because it's very political. And so the state, like, they're trying to claim that you can't be a producer if you're using solar and wind. I don't know that they pass that necessarily. I've had a lot of things happen in the last few years, with my late husband dying, and So I haven't been as in the weeds as I normally am, which is also why I haven't been as involved in local politics as I normally would be. So I'm really not out there. But so I don't know the exact details of this, but I think I need to find out. But I know generally that, in fact, the state was trying to say that if you have renewable, it doesn't count. And you can't be a producer if your portfolio, the production isn't like natural gas or coal or something. So I don't know. I think there were a lot of cities that were trying to fight that because in Texas, it makes sense to use solar. And, down by the coast in Texas, it makes sense to use wind. And even in West Texas, it makes sense to have wind. It just makes sense to do all of this. And anyways, and it is less expensive overall if you're managing the portfolio the way you should be managing it. So anyhow, that just kind of brings me to when I'm paying my electric bill. This is something that I'm thinking about, and I have not brought this to the public because I don't know how to bring it to the public when we are so divided right now. That divisiveness has infiltrated into local politics, which, it's always been there, but not like it is now. And so, if you say anything that doesn't align with your in-group, like whether you're liberal or whether, you're conservative, you're going to have people jumping down your throats. And I just, with some things I get it, really, I do. With some things I absolutely understand, like human decency, things of that nature. Like there's a lot of hate, and I'm not okay with it. But then other things like, pragmatic stuff like roads and like electricity rates. We have to have these conversations. Like sit down in a pragmatic way and figure out as a city, what do we want to do? And here's everything. Like lay it out and just be like, hey, you were paying significantly more to have this renewable plan. How do we want to go about this? Do we want to have our own solar farm? Do we want, what will the state allow in that capacity? Do we want to bring back incentives for people to put solar panels on their house? Because that is preparation for the future, folks. It just is, and it's something we need to do. And I know that Tony does not want people to put solar panels on because he's worried about his bottom line. And I get it. Like, he's not wrong, and he won't, and his stance is that he's not opposed to it, but the caveat is, he's running a business and he has to balance that budget. And with Uri and with the debt of the gas plant, it is really hard when more and more people get solar panels because they're no longer purchasing from him. And then what is DME going to do as that increases? Anyways, I understand that. I really, really do. But I'm a little bit more of a long-term thinker, and I think that's short-term thinking, and for the state of our city, and I understand why he has to think that way, because he is the general manager of the municipal electric, and he absolutely has to think like that because he has to keep the lights on there and in our city. However, to prepare for the future, we absolutely need people to put solar panels on their roofs. We do. Because if we want to take pressure off of the grid, which we should, we should be putting them everywhere on everyone's roof, and really make the effort to become more energy independent from the Texas grid. Although we would still be using the Texas grid, so it's not really independent. I feel like that's not a proper way to put it. But and especially with, you know, the era of data centers, and I'm really frustrated about data centers. We have 2 of them, or we have one, and then we are building another one because of the most recent council voted for them, and I'm very angry about it. Anyways, so not only do we have one data center, which will be using as much energy as our entire city produces, now we're gonna have 2. And so, and I realized that they were like, oh, it's environmentally friendly. It reuses the same water, and we made sure to do this and that. It doesn't matter. It's a data center, and it uses a crap ton of electricity, and it puts our entire city at risk. And ultimately, even if it is a closed loop system for water, because of the heat and the pressure, you are going to have to refill it. And because of loopholes, we do not know what they are doing with any of that waste or that evaporation. We don't know the chemicals in it. So we don't know what's coming into our air. And we don't know how often they have to actually refill, and I understand what closed loop means, but there's still going to be refilling with closed loop. Anyways, just not as much as when it's not. Anyhow, because there's still evaporation into our air. And if there's evaporation into our air, that tells me it's not a total closed loop, you know? Which, you know, that's just science. Anyways, so we have all of that to deal with. And that's a problem. It is not bringing good things to our community. It is a problem to deal with. So now we have 2 big problems to deal with, on top of having our energy portfolio become more and more expensive every single year for residents. And on top of what do we want to do with this renewable portfolio, and how do we want to handle the situation going forward? So, I mean, I have a lot of ideas. I don't know how practical they are. You know, I would actually need to set up a meeting with Tony and be like, hey, what is the state doing? What can we do? And some of that stuff he can't share, you know, but he will share what he is allowed to share, and that's helpful. And I was going to set up a meeting where residents could come in and ask questions. I was going to do that in January, and it is June. I have not done that. You know, several years ago, I would have been on top of that, but I'm not really in a good spot right now, obviously, which is what this is actually about, this whole account, essentially, just kind of changing things. But yeah, so I just did not set that up. I didn't have the bandwidth, nor the energy, and I kind of still don't. So even though I am off work, I don't have the energy to do it. I just don't. But I will maybe make a call to Tony and just kind of ask him, and then maybe talk about it in the group that I help admin. But I think that, you know, I'm not going to be able to ask all the questions that everybody needs to ask, and my ideas aren't always the best ideas. So it's nice to have a group of people who can ask many different varying questions, because I think you accomplish a lot more that way, in getting stuff answered. But anyhow, our city has an opportunity at this point. We're kind of at a crossroads with energy right now. And I kind of feel like we have this opportunity to maybe consider changing stuff. And And I think we should. I think we should because people are economically, people are having a really rough time. I mean, and morally, I think it's a moral conundrum to ask them to pay significantly more for a renewable energy plan when they're struggling to put food on the table. So either we need to change how we're managing that renewable plan to bring rates down, or we need to have a mix, or we need to do something different. We absolutely cannot do what we're doing today and expect to be a morally sound city. But simultaneously, I think we need to ramp up and beef up energy of the future, which is solar, wind. We don't really have opportunity for geothermal or, hydro, but, in the coastal area, I don't know. Anyways, Texas doesn't really have as much hydro or geothermal, but solar and wind we do have. And I do think we need to beef those up for the future. Anyways, I also want to be morally responsible for people who are struggling to put food on their tables, because in some cases, paying an electricity bill or buying groceries could be the situation for a lot of people in our city. And as an environmentalist, and I'm going to put a call out to other environmentalists to please be aware of that. Just please understand that circumstance. And to really get into the weeds, we need to get into the weeds of this, because I think because of political purposes, it's been really expedient for people who are environmentalists, who want to be in office, who are just willing to say anything to remain there, to prop up the things that make them look good without really giving all the information that people should know. And that bothers me. I feel like that has been, we've had a certain council person that I don't support, even though we're on the same side of things, because of that. And I think that they're dishonest. I know they are. And it's hard because I've gotten a lot of flack for that, a lot. It's been extremely stressful. I've lost friends. And that's how divided everything is right now. That people would rather cling to their beliefs of their ideology than actually listen to a friend that's telling them, hey, this person did this bad thing to people, and they shouldn't be in a leadership position. But this person also uses things like, oh, we have a renewable energy portfolio, and I'm going to use this fear tactic to get you to vote for me because my opponent won't vote for it. When there's a lot going on with that portfolio right now that, which I support a renewable portfolio, but not in the way that we're doing it. We need to change it. And so that he's using that as a fear, fear-based rhetoric to get people to vote for him because they're afraid not to. And I'm just like, I've been kind of putting it on pause to even talk about this, because I've known about this for a while, with the renewable energy plan not being great financially for us. And so sometimes hearing him say that really bothers me, because I know he's got to know too, because he's made much more in the weeds than I am, because he has all the documentation at the city, and I know he reads. So if I know this, even through everything that I've been going through where I haven't been as involved, he definitely knows. And he's just not telling people because he wants to win at all costs. And where the ends justify the means. And again, when somebody is saying the ends justify the means, it means that they're probably doing something bad. Anyways, which he was doing some bad things, which have now come out to light, and we've had people corroborate it at the city, which I am super grateful for, and because people have just, he has crushed my reputation at the city, because he's a public official, you know, and I'm just a resident, and like I might admin a group, but I'm not famous. I'm not, you know, I don't have like a huge following. I'm just a person, you know, living here, doing some like citizen work, you know, for people. And anyways, just try to do my best. But, you know, even so, I haven't really been that involved lately. Anyways, it's all a lot. He did some bad things to some women at the city, and they were too afraid to come forward because some of them were afraid they'd get fired. I heard one of them did get fired. I don't know if that's true, so I don't, you know, don't quote me because I'm putting it out there that I don't know that that's true, but I do know for sure that one woman left the city because of how he was treating her. And I know that because of hearsay, but it's a good friend of mine who is also friends with her, and she told her. And I implicitly trust my good friend who told me. But these are the stories that I've been hearing, you know, for like a year or two from women at the city, or women who are good friends with some really good friends of mine who I completely trust. And it's by people who aren't related to each other, like they don't know each other, but they all have the same story. And so I just consider that evidence, right? Well, something really bad happened, and there was an actual anonymous complaint at the city, talking about his abuse. And I went public with it, you know, in my group, my local political group, and he has denied it and tried to say that I was working with a Republican mayor that we have here, Gerard Hudspeth, which I'm not working with Gerard Hudspeth. I'm working with Gerard Hudspeth. That's so funny to me. I mean, I'm sure Gerard would be like, I'm not working with Jody. Like we're not working together. I don't know that we even really like each other that much, you know? Like, I mean, I don't hate Gerard, you know, I really don't, but I also don't think he was an effective mayor. I don't agree with his politics. I don't hang out with him. We're not friends. So I've emailed him a few times, but he's not very responsive. So yeah, that's about the extent of my work with Gerard, because that just isn't happening at all. Anyway, so that's what he or his friend told the newspaper. That I was working with Gerard. I laughed. It's funny, like that's hilarious to me, that he's that desperate, you know, to damage my reputation that he would say that. Okay. But anyways, that's kind of where he's at. And I get it from a psychological perspective. Like, I get it. Like, he's afraid, right? He doesn't want the truth to come out. He's scared because it is damaging. It's damning. What he did to those women is damning. And anyhow, so he denied it and denied it and denied it and denied it. And people got really mad at me because they're so caught up in supporting him so blindly, no offense, that it's like he can do no wrong. It's like Trumpism, but on the liberal side. It really is. It's the most bizarre thing I've seen in a long time, and I'm just surprised that people can be so much like the people they claim they make fun of on the other side. And they claim to be so surprised that people are getting duped. Well, we can all get duped, all of us. I get duped. Anyways, and then, you have people that are like, oh, but he's the lesser of the evil. And, I don't think he's the lesser of the evil. I actually voted for his opponent, who is more of a Lincoln Republican, and I'm not a Republican, I'm a Democrat. But this person is not a MAGA person. He's more of like a Lincoln Republican. And he's just more about, budget, and he's kind of boring, like he just wants to, he wants to get the city in a better position and things of that nature. I've had trust issues with this person too. Like, I'm not saying he's the most perfect candidate on the planet. He is not. And I'm aware of these things. But he's also not harassing women at the city, and the women at the city prefer him. So overall, he's the mature candidate. He knows what he's doing. He's going to get our city back in order. So I voted for him this round. And we had other candidates that I loved. Oh my goodness, I loved there were a couple of candidates, 2 women that were running, and I absolutely loved them. And there was one that just stood out a little bit more that I ended up supporting, but they didn't get into the final runoff. So it is what it is. But I'm just grateful that the truth finally came out. I'm sad that it came out after early voting, because people have already voted. A great majority of people who are even going to vote at all have already voted. But today is election day, and people can still vote, and they should. And they should vote for the Lincoln Republican because he's not going to harass women at the city, and then try to defame residents who openly talk about it, which he did do to me. And I deeply, there are these occasions that I really think about suing him, because of how badly he irreparably harmed my reputation. And there's nothing I can do to change it. And I've lost so many friends because of him. And if he had just come out and said, it was wrong, I did it, and I'm sorry, I was having a bad day, I was hungry, I hadn't slept well, and I know that it was wrong, and I want to deeply apologize to those women. And I was defending my friend who sexually harassed somebody who was, the city didn't find enough evidence to punish him, but he did touch her, which the paper did confirm, which she found inappropriate, but it didn't rise to the occasion for the city. So, but he was defending his friend, good old boys club, right? And he yelled at these women. He yelled at them and told them they should be ashamed for what they said in the report, which was private information that, he only had access to because he's a council person. So he's not supposed to talk about it. He's not supposed to bother the witnesses. He's not supposed to do any of that, but he did. And aside from that, we've had other women, reach out saying that his behavior was terrible. Like he yells at them. Anyways, that is hearsay, but again, when it's not one person saying it, when it's many people who aren't even friends, in my mind, it becomes evidence. Anyways, but the other day, city leaders came forward and confirmed this. They said it did happen. The remarks did happen, and he shouldn't be talking about it. And there was a meeting held, and, you know, Frank Dixon and Cassie Ogden, who are, you know, assistant city managers and so on and so forth, were in the meeting. And so this happened. It happened. And whether there's too much cognitive dissonance for them to accept it, they can sort through that. That is their business. But the truth is out. It happened. We have city leaders confirming it. There's evidence. There was already evidence for the formal complaint, or the anonymous formal complaint lodged to the city auditor. There's not a way for people at the city to stay anonymous and stay safe, and that's why they abandoned that complaint, because they didn't want the circus of their name being dragged through the public, like they knew that this council person would do, like he's done to me, like he's done to others. So I get it. I really do. Like it really reputationally harmed me. And they didn't want that, and I don't blame them. I really don't. It's been hell. It has been absolute hell dealing with this shit. And in a very, very public way. But you know, I'm just one of those people. Like I will take one for the team. And when I see an injustice, I don't know what it is in me, but you know, there are some things that I can't get involved in, like I'm just too spent. But sometimes, occasionally, there's an injustice, and I just, like, if I can change it or help, I want to do that. And this was one of those moments where, you know, I had seen some of his behavior privately, and I knew kind of something was really off. And I knew he was using his power inappropriately with those women because of how he did use it. And since I run a local political group, I wanted to inform people not to vote for him, because this is what he's doing. Anyways, occasionally I will use myself to fight the good fight. But I understand why those women didn't want to come forward, because it has been absolute hell. And I just hope that our city can move on from this. And I hope that people understand that I am an honest person. I'm an honest person. I'm going to tell you the truth. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to correct myself. I'm not going to like sit in my ego and, you know, just try to like say, oh, well, you know, make excuses or circle around the issue and pretend like that I was actually right when I'm not. That's a core value of mine. But that is not a core value of his. He even went online and wrote up this huge post about how it's just all spin, when it's just crazy. And the people who are still defending him, you know, like I get why they defended him earlier. That's fine. If they voted for him, fine. Like, I'm not even mad about it at all. Not at all, because I was duped by him for a long time too. But after city leaders come out and say, yes, this happened, and it did happen, because if city leaders say it happened, they could get sued, the city could get sued. So it has to be true. Like, if it's not true, if they don't have evidence, like solid evidence, that could withstand a court case, they're not going to say it. So this happened. And there's evidence on their side that could easily withstand any kind of lawsuit or court case, and just know that. So I think there's a hawk in the tree. I hear a hawk. That's the sound of a hawk, by the way. Right there. I bet you can hear it. Anyways, yeah. So like, So yeah, it all happened. Anyhow, this kind of ties in with the renewable energy plan that I was originally talking about, because we've got to do something about it. It ties in with data centers because we have those as a problem now, in part because of this exact council person who supported them so ardently. He was the primary person who supported this, and now he's trying to backtrack and say, oh, I don't support more. Bullshit. We'll see what you do if you actually get to be mayor. Anyways, he was so ardently in favor of them that anybody who tried to argue with him, he just said we didn't understand what we were talking about, and that he's in tech and he's a PhD, and you know, he knows what he's talking about. He's in data. Oh, guess what? So am I. But he basically said that we were just ignorant fools. And guess who has egg on their face now? Because, I mean, I think the world is kind of seeing what these are, finally. But anyways, yeah, it is what it is. It really is. Like, there's nothing our city can do to backtrack and to back out those votes. But we certainly can have a moratorium, which another councilman, a new one who I voted for, who was fantastic, who is now my council person, put up a request to have a moratorium, and I'm just so excited about that. And then the mayor that I voted in also wants a moratorium to do studies to see what does it actually do to cities, you know, to have more information, because we just don't know enough about data centers at this time. And I hope he wins. I hope he wins, because I think he's much more reasonable. And he may not always vote the way I want him to vote, and I'm aware of that. And there are times that I'm going to be like, damn, you know, but I have a lot of times that I've already been like, damn, with this other council member. So, you know, like the data centers and the way our city has grown and the way our roads, the construction just never ends, and was in part, you know, changes by that council and how we do construction. So, which they won't talk about, but I'll get into that another day. They made changes to how we do construction, and that's why it's taking so long. We'll talk about that later. Anyways, but this is where I'm at today. It's election day. Please go vote. Please do not vote for the man who harasses women at the city. Please. Please go vote for the Lincoln Republican, who might actually fix some stuff, but who I may not always agree with, but who always responds and is respectful to me when I do reach out to him, although he is not always more respectful to everybody, but not so disrespectful like the woman harassing candidate. That guy is deeply disrespectful in ways that I could go on and on about here, but I won't. With me too. Who signs his name Dr. So-and-so, comma, PhD. Who does that? Like, who does that? Like, you only have to put it once, buddy. Okay. All right. You have a lovely day. I will try not to talk about local politics too much, because that's not what this is about. But I will be bringing it up a little bit on occasion. Thank you.